Hey guys, welcome back. So for this one, we're jumping back into the Kane comic universe with issues 1 and 2 of McKenna, with this series being one of many that expand the world and the story beyond the character of Kane, which gives us insight about the other characters around him, as well as the vast world that all of this takes place in. And I have links down in the description for you guys to get McKenna issues 1 and 2, which are both available now. But as we dive into this, we'll be getting a look at McKenna's history, as well as how her past connects to Global Corp, which in the Kane series, like we've seen, this is something that she's been keeping a secret from him. And in this series, we find out part of the reason why. So with that said, let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get your spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squad up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so with how this begins, we start off 13 years ago, before the events of Kane Volume 1, at a Global Corp's orphanage where a very young McKenna was raised. But even with starting this off, because of what we'd seen in Kane issues 1 through 3, we know that Global Corp is built from the descendants of King Lycan, with the intentions of controlling humanity and forcing them to bend the knee. So of course, off the bat, with us knowing that Global Corp has an orphanage, for us as the reader, that's like a red flag on page 1. Even though, as we continue, it seems to be your regular orphanage at a first glance, but the name itself lets you know that something here isn't quite right. And even though the actions of Global Corp aren't as obvious or conspicuous as some would think, we find here at this time that McKenna and her best friend Allison had grown suspicious one day when they were in class, which would turn out to be a day that would change their lives forever. Because it was here when they noticed that one of their classmates by the name of Theodore, who had been removed from the class for weeks, was just brought back by Mother Helen with no explanation of where he was or why he now looks sick all of a sudden, because weeks ago when he was taken, Theo was just fine. But this raised suspicion between McKenna and her friend Allison, and they whispered to each other like, hey, we gotta find out what's going on because something isn't right here. But they were quickly told to be silent, to where then next, Mother Helen told Allison that it's now her time to go. And right away Allison, she's terrified because she don't know what they was doing with Theo, with him coming back looking like he's sick, possibly dying. So immediately Allison starts crying and she tells them that she does not want to go. But the tears and the begging, it doesn't do much because they still make Allison go anyway. And later that night, while McKenna's being tucked in by Mother Helen, she asks her, where did Allison go? But Mother Helen, she just dismisses the question and she tells McKenna that Allison will be fine, she'll be back soon, just go to bed. But for young McKenna, she couldn't let this slide. So soon after Mother Helen had left, McKenna snuck out of her room and she made her way to see if she can go find her friend. And after passing a door that said do not enter, she grabbed a chair so she could climb up to the vent and get a better look at what's going on inside. And with McKenna making her way to peep through the vent into that room, she heard Allison's voice screaming, let me go, and with looking inside, she finds that a now sedated Allison has been undergoing some sort of experimentation. And for McKenna, with her seeing this, she waits for everyone to leave the room before she makes her way inside. But even though she's not sure what kind of experimentation is going on here, she knows that it isn't right, and the two of them have got to get out of there. But when she wakes up her friend Allison, who's still very much out of it because of the sedatives, she tries to get Allison out of her restraints, but Allison tells McKenna that she just needs to go save herself because she doesn't think that she can make it. But for McKenna, even though she doesn't want to leave Allison behind, in this moment she doesn't have much of a choice. She's only a kid, and it's not like she's physically strong enough to just lift up her friend and get her out of there. And from here, out of fear, McKenna just takes off, making a run for it with no clue of where she's gonna go or how far she could possibly get from here. And really the only thing that she does know is that she can't stay. But after McKenna leaves, one of the scientists comes back to the room and he finds that one of Allison's constraints have been undone, which right there lets him know that somebody's not where they're supposed to be. But with this happening, the alarm goes off and right away McKenna knows that these guys are going to be right after her. So in a panic, she takes off into the woods, once again having no idea where she's going to go. All she knows is that orphanage ain't it. But with her running through the woods frantically, she trips, she stumbles, she gets back up. But then eventually when she jumps off of this rock, which to a child is more like a short cliff, she lands right into a bear trap. And come to think of it, it's a smaller snare, possibly the type to catch a rabbit or a fox or something. But nonetheless, for McKenna, this thing stops her in her tracks. But as she looks up, she then sees Mother Helen right there, moments before she blacks out. But then when she wakes up, she finds herself and Mother Helen in a cave with this huge pot boiling some kind of mysterious something. And when I first saw this, the first thing I'm thinking is Mother Helen's about to make some orphan soup. But as it turns out, we quickly discover that Mother Helen is actually helping McKenna, because it's here when we discover with Mother Helen finishing the preparations for her spell, she's willing to do all that she can and make great sacrifice to help and save McKenna. But with her doing this, though we don't know the full extent at the moment as far as what this spell is, or even what exactly she's transferring from herself to McKenna. What we do see is that this spell leaves symbols on McKenna's neck, similar to those that we now see on Mother Helen's arm, which possibly gives the indication that whatever Mother Helen transferred to McKenna caused some of these symbols to disappear from her and then appear on McKenna. But all we really know at this time is that this spell healed McKenna's wound, but for Mother Helen, it came at the price of causing her to age rapidly. And though we don't know what exactly this spell or this ritual means in this moment, what we do know is that it had to be of great importance and great urgency for Mother Helen to do something like this for McKenna, which again, it's likely that there's more to it than it just being a spell to fix her ankle. But after this, when we then head over to issue 2, it's here where we find that Mother Helen has taken McKenna to stay with some longtime friends of hers so that they could look after her. And as they arrive here, we discover that the other people that are here, they've all been wronged by Global Corp. And as Mother Helen says her goodbyes to McKenna, we discover that she's also been working with them undercover to investigate at the orphanage. And she assures McKenna that these people will protect her from Global Corp. But before Mother Helen leaves, she takes a minute to talk to the leader of this group, who's a guy by the name of Fabian. But as they step away to have a conversation, he refers to her as Esme, which McKenna hears as they walk away, and it's her first time discovering Mother Helen's real name. But moments later, just before she leaves McKenna here, she introduces McKenna to Fabian's son, Jack, who's about the same age as McKenna. But from here, as Mother Helen leaves, or better yet, Esme, gets ready to leave, she lets McKenna know that she's got to get back to work, she's got to get back to her investigation, and McKenna tells her to make sure to visit soon, and in response, Esme promises that she will. But then from here, we come to find that both McKenna and Jack, they become good friends. Jack shows McKenna his comic book collection, he tells her which one's his favorites, and he shows her a number of different issues for hours on end. But with hours passing, Fabian comes to Jack's room and he lets the kids know that it's time for them to get to bed, to where from there he takes McKenna to her room, and really it's here where we discover that Esme hadn't come back to visit like she promised, even after 12 years had passed. But from here, with the story taking the lead 12 years later, I also want you guys to keep in mind that the events that are taking place now are happening 1 year before, where we'd seen McKenna in Kane issue number 1. But it's here where we continue, where we find a much older McKenna and Jack making their way into position for what essentially is a mini heist, with them intercepting one of Global Corp's supply trucks. But for McKenna and Jack, their job is to wait up ahead on the overpass, so of course they have a little fun racing there on the way. And when they get into position, Fabian radios the two of them just to get an update. But with how he does it, and he's playing of course, but he says, "What's up, lovebirds, how we looking?" Which for McKenna, she pays it no mind. She's like, "We're in position." But for Jack, with his dad kind of playing like this, you kind of get the idea that this isn't the first time that Fabian has teased his son about him and McKenna being such close friends, and more or less poking fun just to see if there's anything more going on between the two of them. But with how this goes down, just a few seconds later, the truck gets there. They already got spikes laid out, blowing out the tires, while Fabian and a few others use a couple trucks to cut off the transport and offload the supplies. And really for these guys, with them doing this and intercepting Global Corp supply trucks, this is more or less how they fund what they're doing, as well as feed the people at the shelter. So in a way, there's a lot of Robin Hood vibes going on here. But at this point, with them stopping the supply truck, before they know it, a ton of Global Corp mercs jump out the back, ambushing Fabian and the others. And with seeing this, quickly McKenna and Jack grapple down from the overpass to help Fabian out. And with the two of them now jumping in, it isn't long before the situation's handled and they're able to take the supplies, load up the trucks, and head back home. But then it's around this time where McKenna starts to express to Jack how it's been 12 years since she's heard anything from Esme or about the orphanage for that matter. In this whole time she's been searching, she hasn't found any answers. And in response, Jack tells her more or less at this point that she needs to just let it go. And it's not out of a place of malice, but instead he truly believes that McKenna is chasing a ghost. And from here, even when they get back to the shelter, and Fabian's congratulating the two on a job well done, but for McKenna, she just goes inside and goes straight to her room, which then has Fabian asking his son Jack, like, is she okay? And Jack tells him that McKenna has just been going on about Esme again, and with hearing this, Fabian suggests that his son should help McKenna out, help her look into it. That way, regardless of whatever they find, at least she'll have a friend there. But for Jack, the way he sees it, he just doesn't want to encourage her going after a dead end, because the people at this shelter need them. But from here, when we see McKenna go back to her room, she tosses her gear on the dresser, which knocks over some of the comics, and she sees that issue of Illinois' Troy, which was the first comic that Jack shared with her, with it being his favorite. But then we also come to find out that over the years, McKenna has drawn connections to all the information that she could find on the disappearance of Mother Helen, and with her recently discovering that her leads are now pointing to a new flagship hotel that Global Corp is opening in Galapagos, she packs up her bags and she makes her way out there to get some answers once and for all. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Issues 1 and 2 of McKenna are available now, and I got the links down in the description where you can get your copies, as well as be on the lookout for upcoming issues so you can see how the story continues and how it connects with the other issues in the Kane comic universe. But with that said, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.